When I was in third grade at the Scotland Public Schools, it was determined that maybe public school, at that time anyway, wasn't the best place for me. There were some conflicts with the teachers, and I'm not going to say I necessarily blame them or that they were trying to be mean to me or anything like that. However, that is what it seemed like as a little 9-year-old child going to school. And sometimes that's what's important, is what it seems like to the person. I ended up going to Crippled Children's Hospital and School in Sioux Falls. Crippled Children's Hospital and School was started as a school for people like me that had polio and a place to learn. Because, again, one of the problems that people had is that quite often that they didn't realize that because you had a physical disability that you were maybe normally cognitively normal in other ways, and that going to school was maybe a good thing. In fact, maybe a very good thing. I will say all the time that I was at Crippled Children's that kind of in general, I hated it. I didn't like being there. I didn't like the fact that I had to be there. The good thing is that the people that ran the place, the staff and stuff, understood that and didn't take it personally when I showed them how much I disliked them. And I didn't really dislike them. I disliked it. I disliked having to be there. But there were some really great advantages with being there. For once in my life, I was around a true peer group. A bunch of other kids like me with disabilities that were different, of course, and everybody's was a little bit different. No, certainly with polio, there are never two people that have the same exact afflictions with it. So mine was, my left leg. A good friend of mine, Elvis, was also happened to be a Native American, but he had polio as well, and his right leg was affected, but not his left leg so much. And in upper body, he was completely normal, where my left arm has always been somewhat weak. It was really kind of an interesting place to be. We could do things. We, played basketball and stuff, and baseball, and football, things like that. We did things that other kids did. One of the greatest things there was they had a really nice heated swimming pool, and I always really enjoyed swimming. It was one of those things that I considered kind of an equalizer. It was, when I was in a swimming pool, I couldn't swim maybe as good as anybody, but I could swim very well. I could hold my breath well. I could do a lot of things in a pool that I couldn't do outside the pool, and that was really kind of a good thing about being there. And again, I was around a peer group where we could be kids and treat each other like other kids do. I mean, we did things and said things that maybe seem a little bit odd, but, for example, maybe a friend of mine was going to get or watching TV, and they were going to go get a glass of pop or something, and I would say, get me one while you're up, and they'd say, get it yourself. What are you, crippled? And in a normal circumstances, that would maybe be kind of mean and not a very nice thing to do or say. But there, of course you could say that because they were too. And it was really kind of a different environment. And some of the really good things that came out of it is that we pushed each other to do better. And we could do that because some of the things that happens, for example, everybody gets a feeling sometimes that why me? Why did this happen to me? How come I'm the one who's crippled? I'm the one who has to deal with this all the time. And it can be very disheartening, and it can make a person, a little bit sad and stuff. And I remember when that would happen, I could look around and see somebody who was worse off than me, had greater disability than I did, and yet they were sitting there smiling, having a good time, doing something, making the most of things. And I realized, seeing them, that, what? They can do it, I can do it. And some of the things that happened that really kind of show this is, for example, a friend of mine, Keith, who had come there with a disability from carbon monoxide poisoning. And it's kind of like a stroke, and maybe in a way it was a stroke, I don't know. And anyway, he couldn't use his right arm, very much at all, and he could walk, but he kind of drug his right leg somewhat, and his left side was very normal, and he did have some speech issues and things like that, which got much better over time. But one of the things when he first came there, he would always try to get somebody to button his shirt because he only had one hand, and when you asked him, he would say button it yourself, and he'd say one hand, and he said I only have one hand, and so I taught myself to button my shirt left-handed, and I am not left-handed. I am was at the time a very much right-handed person, and so it took some time, but I did it kind of just because I wanted to show him, and maybe in a way though because I wanted to push him to do better. And so the next time that he asked somebody to button his shirt, asked me to button his shirt, and I just sat there and buttoned my shirt with just my left hand and said, yeah, Keith, I see how hard it is, that it's impossible to do. And he got kind of upset, but then he went down to OT, or occupational therapy, that same day, and they asked them to teach him to button his shirt with his left hand, and always after that he did. And that's just an example of the kind of things that we could do, but we did other things too, like the time that we scammed and got a bunch of squirt bottles, and we're running around the place. They had a whole pile of them there, and we got a number of them, and we're running around the place using them as squirt guns, and they were like, 1-pint bottles, so you could get a lot of squirting done with those, and we had a bunch of them held in reserve, so when the nurse took them away from us, we just pulled out the reserves and went to a different part of the building and proceeded to do the same until they finally took them all away from us. So more on that next time.